Today on the Big 6 in 60, the Cowboys re-signed Javonte Williams.
On a 3-year, $24 million contract.
The Titans get an update on Cam Ward's injury.
It is absolutely fantastic news.
And the Patriots look at targets for the upcoming draft.
Even though this draft is not rich with top-tier talent, it is set up for the Pats to do very well.
This is the Big 3 in 30 NFL, the 3 biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The Big 3 in 30 NFL starts now. Thank you for making the Big 3 in 30 your first listen of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. The Cowboys re-signed running back Javonte Williams over the weekend to a 3-year deal. To give their thoughts on whether it's worth it to pay the running back, Marcus Mosher and Landon McCool chime in on Locked On Cowboys.
The Dallas Cowboys re-signing Javonte Williams ahead of free agency on a 3-year, $24 million contract. We're going to talk about some potential pitfalls here, what's next at the running back position. But I think overall, the belief, at least from Cowboy fans, is they're very excited to have Javonte Williams back because of a lot of different factors, including what he did as an inside runner last year and as a pass blocker. But it just seemed like, Landon, this was a player that the players loved, and they kind of had to bring him back. So I totally get it.
Yeah, and I think, on a level of, I think in a year where you are overly reliant on your offense, you need to be over reliant as your defense rebuilds. Again, I think having continuity is probably a little bit more valuable, right? And so I think it was important for the Cowboys to bring back Williams. And we'll talk about the need to try to continue to find ways to improve this offense. And I think there certainly is value there, but I think on a certain level, getting a guy back like Williams was important to at least set a floor for what this offense, and a high floor, right, for what this offense needed to be in running the football, and really in what he does in the pass game. And I think there are areas where he could even improve there as well.
My question for you is, why do you think they decided to do it now? Because part of me thinks that we're going to get into free agency and there's just not a lot of destinations for these running backs. And I wonder if there's a chance that you could get him either on a cheaper deal into free agency or potentially upgrade the position. Or do you think it was as simple as, hey, he's familiar with this offense, he's a good fit. Yeah, we might be able to save our $1 or $2 million, but it's just not worth the risk here.
I think it's a little bit of that. I think it's a little bit of just trying to get things done a little bit earlier. I mean, I think that was a pleasantly surprising aspect of this, is that it did get done early, and that it was, I mean, not that this was necessarily going to be some long drawn out affair necessarily, but just, the Cowboys knocking out the simple things in order to kind of get to business on some of the more difficult things as free agency approaches. So
see, my take on that is, again, this is me speculating.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if this was Williams and his agent coming to the Cowboys first.
Maybe.
Because I think if you don't want to be one of these running backs that gets left having to take a 1-year, $3 million deal. I think it's possible Javonte could have got more money elsewhere in free agency. But is it really worth the risk when you fit this offense well and there's a $16 million guaranteed on the table? Probably not.
Especially when you probably, this is one of those things where the negotiation started probably pretty close, right? There wasn't like a huge difference in what the valuation was. So I don't, it's not like these parties were so far off. And if there's mutual interest there, then I think it's easier to kind of hammer out a deal that makes both sides feel like it's equitable,
Right. And well, I mean, how much negotiating can you really do in this? Because
you're
exactly right. So
last
year he signed a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. We always knew that it was going to be at least a couple of $1 million more per year. And he wasn't going to get like over $10 million a year. So you're talking about the difference in like $4 or $5 million a year at most. That's much different than when you're talking about negotiating with the George Pickens or a Micah Parsons or Osa Odigizua. Like, there's only so many ways this can go.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about the market and what it's going to look like this year for free agent running backs. it's not pretty for being a free agent running back. It's a buyer's market, and so I think it was one of those things where the team wanted him back. He probably wanted to be back. He felt a level of comfort with what was going on in Dallas, and just felt like if they could get this done early, it would be to the best interest of both sides. So yeah, it made some sense, and I think we'll see how it plays out a little bit, because I still think that things are going to need to change.
Yeah,
you're still going to need. All the things that we prescribed for the running back room, I think, still apply. You still need to get a secondary back to kind of insulate Williams a little bit out of the season.
I also wonder how things would have been different if this was a better running back class, and or if the Cowboys had more day 2 picks, because I think you could make an argument. Hey, the Cowboys have had a lot of success, just cycling through these guys in free agency, draft a running back on day 2, and let's go that route. But I mean, you and I have been doing a lot of draft homework. There might be one running back. Actually, there might be 2 running backs worthy of being drafted inside 100. They both go to Notre Dame.
That's right.
Just not a great running back class. And the Cowboys only have 2 picks inside the top 100, 2 of them in the first round. I think it was a combination of, let's just get this deal done. Let's knock out a need. It's not going to cost us a ton to do it. And now we can focus on getting George Pickens done, getting Brandon Aubrey done, and fixing the defense.
I mean, honestly, the argument that we should be making is that if they had not waited so late to draft a running back the year previous in 2025, then maybe they could have gotten a running back that they could have felt a little bit more comfortable to not have to invest as heavily in a starting running back, right?
Well,
I think,
to be fair, I think that was the plan. Honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But in 2025, you had Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, who were both selected right before they picked. So they pivoted to Donovan Ezraku, which again, if you do that over again, you take Ezraku even over those running backs. Fair. But in round 3, I don't think there was a guy that they loved, and they had a high grade on Ravel. The problem was between picks where the Cowboys took Ravel and that 5th round pick of Jaden Blue, or where all those other running backs went, and there was just nothing there the Cowboys felt great about.
It's just the way the whole thing played out was rough, and I think ultimately the Cowboys landed on their feet because Williams was such a great value last year as a running back, and look, I think the contract is right on the upper edge of what you and I talked about with being comfortable with, as far as when we first kind of laid out a deal for him. So I'm not upset with it. I think again, I think he's a good player, and I think he brings a high floor to the situation. But I still think that you need to add some dynamism to the offense with a back that kind of alternates that skill set. And whether that's Blue or whether you need to kind of still go out and find another running back, that still remains to be seen.
The good news is I think you can find that player, whether it's in free agency, whether it's in the draft, but it's really hard to get rookies that'll come in and pick up linebackers in, the passing game as blockers that'll be able to grind out the hard yardage on, 3rd and goal. And Javonte showed that he could do that.
Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. Not only can your pick cash, but it could also send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Welcome back to the Big 3 in 30 NFL. Titans quarterback Cam Ward has dealt with injury all offseason, and the team has given an update on his progress. Tyler Rowland has the info on Locked On Titans.
We got an injury update on Cam Ward's shoulder over the weekend. It is absolutely fantastic news, and we get the news from a guy who I always enjoyed who covered the Titans, and Cam Wolfe, who now works for NFL Network. But he said that Cam Ward will be ready to throw and resume throwing in 2 to 3 weeks. Said it in a TV interview over the weekend. He said, quote, that Cam Ward is recovering well. Also mentioned that Cam Ward's trying to eliminate some bad habits that he developed last year with his mechanics and things like that. And all of that should be music to Tennessee Titans fans' ears. Number one, just from a health perspective, we haven't really gotten solid reporting on exactly what Cam Ward's shoulder injury is. We know it's an AC joint sprain, but is it grade 3? Is it grade this? Is it blah, blah? There's been conflicting reports out there. But for Cam Ward to not only not need surgery, which is what I talked about at the end of the season after the injury happened. If Cam Ward can avoid surgery on his throwing shoulder, that is what is the best outcome possible. So this tells us not only is he going to be able to avoid surgery and not need that surgery, but he's already going to be throwing by the time we get into mid-March. I mean, around when free agency is going to kick off. March the 9th, March the 10th, March the 11th. Cam should be good to go and start throwing. That's excellent. When you look at the full timeline, remember, he hurt his shoulder in the final game against the Jacksonville Jaguars when he ran out and scored a touchdown and got landed on whiffs of dirtiness in the hit, but I won't pearl clutch with football and the hits that are out there. But nonetheless, it was a concerning time. But for him to be back throwing, 8 weeks, 9 weeks after that, avoiding the surgery and being ready to go, that is the best possible outcome that Tennessee Titans fans could have hoped for, that the Tennessee Titans organization could have hoped for, and that Cam Ward could have hoped for. And again, it is more than just Cam Ward being healthy. We want Cam Ward to be healthy. That's a simple thing. I don't want Cam Ward to need surgeries and have to rehab and blah, blah, blah. But think about how critical this offseason is, not only to Cam Ward, but to the rest of the offense. If he's throwing in March, that means he can get with his weapons and get with his guys and actually throw a little bit before the Tennessee Titans get back to organized team activities in April. And Brian Dable kept saying, can't wait for April, because that's when they actually get together and get to do some football stuff, get to start installing the offense and all that. But wouldn't it be nice if Cam Ward could have one of those trips to Cabo or one of those trips to a Caribbean island and take some guys with him like Alec Iomanor, like Chim Dike, like Gunnar Helm, like Calvin Ridley, whoever the Titans sign in free agency. If they could get together in early April, late March, and throw together, that's more than just, I want Cam Ward to be healthy, which is a duh moment. It's, we can actually start building forward, getting ready for the season, being ahead of schedule. My concern with the Cam Ward injury is he going to be healthy to work when it's time to install the offense in April? Is he going to be able to get some early work with his weapons and get that chemistry and that cohesion going? Is he going to be able to get his hands on the playbook and then go out and rep those things a little bit with his guys in those, organized Cam Ward events, not necessarily team events? Is he going to be ready for OTAs into mandatory mini camp and then have perfect health going into training camp? It's so critical because it's a brand new offense, a brand new system, brand new terminology. And the other reality that we have to accept is a lot of brand new players. The Titans hopefully have 2 or 3 brand new wide receivers on this roster. Hopefully have a brand new tight end. Hopefully have a brand new running back. We haven't heard any noise about Titans cuts or anything like that. And I'll tell you this, I am begging the Tennessee Titans to start doing something before free agency kicks. Free agency, the tampering period, I believe, starts on March the 9th. Real free agency, when the deals start getting announced, happens on March the 11th. A lot of these contracts that we're talking about that could be potential cuts for the Titans, Snead, Pollard, Woods, the money changes after March the 15th. You want to get this stuff in order before you get to free agency. So I think we are going to start hearing some stuff this week as teams are at the combine and they're talking to player agents and they're saying, hey, would your player be interested in signing with us? Hey, would they be interested for this price? How would this guaranteed dollar amount work? And then once the Titans talk to some of those agents and get an understanding of what the landscape is, then they can make their own decision. So I think we're going to get a cut or two. L'Jarius Snead needs to be cut by the end of the week. But again, Cam Ward being ready to throw in 2 to 3 weeks can allow him to get with some of these guys, can allow him to be ready for OTAs and mandatory minicamp, to hit the ground running with the new system and building chemistry with his new weapon. So again, there's no other way to frame this than this is excellent news. This is truly the best case scenario for Cam Ward having an injury in the last week of the season. Like, that in itself, in a vacuum, is a terrible thing to say, but the way that it worked out, no surgery, ready to start throwing after 8 weeks, gonna be ready to go in middle of March to start throwing, be ready for OTAs and all that stuff. Again, it could not have worked out any better considering the circumstances, and it gives the Tennessee Titans a ton of clarity and gives the rest of the offense a ton of clarity because they're not gonna have to worry about somebody else being in there and Cam Ward being behind the 8 ball. So it's all great, and I say the 8 ball, and I could be referring to Will Levis behind the 8 ball. You know what I mean? It worked out a little bit better than I even expected there. But we talked about the injury update we got from Cam Wolf of NFL Network. Great news for the Tennessee Titans for multiple reasons. Not only Cam Ward's health, but what it means for all the other players in the offense and the coaches as well. But now I want to talk about more Cam Ward news because there's something interesting that happened over the weekend, and I think it points in a good direction for the Titans. Now, I will tell you this, full disclosure, I did not hear this quote directly myself. I did not find a video file afterwards. But apparently Cam Ward was doing a card break event, sports cards, opening packs, all that. Not something that I am 100% into, but I know a lot of you guys are. A lot of discussion about cards and stuff in the Locked On Titans Everydayer chat, so you guys should check that out. But if we are to believe my guy Stone Titan on Twitter, if what he says is true, he tweeted this. He was at the event. He said, Cam Ward pulled Ruben Bain's card in one of his packs and said, that's our first round pick right there. That's the quote. That's our first round pick right there. Now, I talked to someone else who was at the event who said they didn't hear Cam Ward say that. Not to say that he did not say that, but just they didn't hear it themselves, so they couldn't confirm it. There's no video evidence or anything like that, so I am going to admit here, we don't know if that's true. I don't want to call the tweeter into question and his integrity or anything like that, but we don't know for certain if that's true. But would it be that big of a stretch? The reality is that's Cam Ward's teammate from Miami. It would not be a shock whatsoever if Cam Ward said that. And here's the thing. I don't think that Cam Ward saying that's our first round pick right there means that Cam Ward knows that that is their first round pick. And because how could you know that? They're picking fourth. It's not like they're picking first and they know that they can take whoever they want. But it would make all the sense in the world for Cam Ward to have said that. And Ruben Bain would make all the sense in the world as the pick. And let me remind you that when Jeffrey Simmons went on Bussin' with the Boys earlier this offseason, one of the best Jeffrey Simmons interviews, one of the best Titans interviews that I've ever seen. If you missed the Jeffrey Simmons interview on Bussin' with the Boys, you got to check it out. I don't pub other podcasts and stuff like that, but it's such a good interview that it deserves its attention if you missed it. But Jeffrey Simmons said, I'd like to have Ruben Bain on my team. Literally said it. Yeah, that Bain from Miami. I mean, it just makes so much sense for the Tennessee Titans. And I go back to Gus Bradley's comment at the opening press conference where he said we want two different kinds of edges. You have a physical edge who can play out on the edge on first and second down and then kick inside to rush the passer on passing downs. You have your prototypical speed edge rusher who could be on the outside all 3 downs and rush with speed to the quarterback. Now, Ruben Bain fits the first description absolutely perfectly. There are some people who are concerned about the arm length and think that Ruben Bain may have to kick inside to be a pass rusher because his arms aren't very long. Well, if I know that he's incredibly physical against the run and can set the edge with the best of them because of his dominance and his, tenacious mind state, and then I'm worried about the arms, so I move him into the interior to rush, Doesn't that fit that description, the first one, perfectly? Like, that's exactly what you want. And if the Titans were to sign Trey Hendrickson in free agency, who is more of a pure pass, he's a big-bodied guy who can be physical, but he's more of a pure pass rusher, so he could be that speed guy on the outside. If they were to get Odafe Owe, if they were to get Jalen Phillips, if they were to get, I don't think this guy is as clean of a fit, but I always really liked him even coming out of college, Boye Mafe. If they were to get one of those guys who could be every down speed rusher, all three downs on one edge, and then let Ruben Bain be that, and imagine Ruben Bain head up on an offensive tackle. Femi Oladejo is the Sam linebacker next to him. Like, who is running that direction? And let Jeffrey Simmons be the backside three technique. And then a wide defensive end like Trey Hendrickson. Who's running on the Titans? Who? That's what I want to know. Al's in the chat. Like, it's not going to happen.
Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. Not only can your pick cash, but it could also send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 NFL. The Patriots got back to the Super Bowl this season and have a window here to build a team around Drake May on a rookie deal. To look at who New England could add in the draft this spring, here's Nick Cattles with Locked On Patriots.
If there are no big trades for veterans, we've talked about the Max Crosby possibility. We talked about the A.J. Brown possibility last week. If there are no big trades for any vet that's out there, this draft sets up beautifully for the Pats. Let's start here. The positions that are the deepest in this draft are positions that the Patriots should be looking at, should be targeting. Let's start with defensive end. Now, I believe that edge is one of, if not the biggest need for the Patriots this offseason. And when you look at this draft, pass rusher, defensive end, edge, it's pretty stacked as far as depth goes. Dane Brugler of The Athletic, one of the best in the business, put out his top 100 of NFL draft prospects recently. 15 of his top 100 were edge players. 15 of the top 100. Jordan Reed of ESPN posted back on October 29th that the defensive line was the strongest position group in this year's draft. Daniel Jeremiah of the NFL Network recently posted, if you need an edge rusher, this is a good draft to double up. The depth of the class is impressive. I've got 10 guys worthy of a spot in the top 50. There's another layer of quote-unquote traitsy players beyond that group. ESPN's Matt Miller writing about the defensive linemen in this draft during Senior Bowl week. On Tuesday of that week, Matt Miller wrote, Zion Young, Lee Hunter, Caleb Banks, and TJ Parker all looked like top 40 players. You're going to hear a lot about this defensive line class in the next 3 months. You're the Patriots. You need an edge, at least one edge, if not two edges, out of this draft coming up in April. And you're looking at the board, and you're looking at top 50 players, top 100 players, and it is littered. Those boards are littered with defensive ends. Plenty of opportunity for the Pats to add a pass rusher with any of their picks, but especially when you look at a first-round pick, their second-round pick, a golden opportunity to land a young, impressive defensive edge that can pass rush for you for the next 6, 7, 8, 9 years. Get a little bit more young at the edge. That opportunity will be right there in front of the Patriots on draft weekend. Another deep positional group in this draft class is wide receiver. Now, here's the thing when we talk about wide receivers. I don't think the Patriots need any more guys who can be a 2 receiver, a 3 receiver, a 4 receiver. it feels like they have enough of those guys. It feels like between Kayshon Boutte and Mac Hollins and Kyle Williams and maybe Pop Douglas and Efton Chisholm and even Stephon Diggs, if you keep him, it feels like you have wide receiver 2 through like 5 or 6 pretty much locked down. The Patriots need a true number 1 guy. Now, whether or not they feel like that guy is going to be in this draft, well, that's up to them. But when you look at wide receiver in this draft class, it is pretty deep. Dane Brugler, positional breakdown. When you look at his top 100, we just told you that he has 15 edges in his top 100 players. At wide receiver, he has 17 players in the top 100 that play that position. That is the most of any group. 17 out of the top 100. Now, who's actually going to be there for the Patriots at number 31? It's unlikely Ohio State's Carnell Tate is going to be there, right? He's going to go pretty early. It's unlikely that USC's Mekhi Lemon is going to be there. Arizona State's Jordan Tyson, also unlikely. Washington's Denzel Boston. I think those 4 receivers, and many people would tell you this, not just me, but I think those 4 receivers are going to be the first 4 off the board, and I don't think any of those guys will be sitting there for the Patriots at number 31. Now, of course, you wonder, could the Patriots get uber aggressive and trade up in the first round to try to land Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, Jordan Tyson, or Denzel Boston? Maybe. But if they don't look to be super aggressive and move up in that first round, I don't think any of those 4 guys will be there at 31. So if they're not going to be there, who could be there at 31? Well, Matt Miller of ESPN noted recently the back end of the first round, there are going to be several good receiver prospects in that range. Mike Reese on Sunday caught up with Field Yates of ESPN and talked about some of the wide receivers in this draft. Texas A&M's KC Concepcion is someone that you've probably heard a lot of the last week or so. Indiana's Omar Cooper Jr. also could be there at 31. Now, we'll talk more about KC Concepcion a little bit later in the next segment. But as far as Omar Cooper Jr. goes, polished, instinctive, detailed route runner who chews up yards after the catch through contact, strength, balance, and vision. That's what Field Yates had to say about Omar Cooper Jr. How about day 2 options? Notre Dame's Malachi Fields, Tennessee's Chris Brazzell, Mississippi State's Brendan Thompson, and Louisville's Chris Bell. Now, Chris Bell is an interesting prospect because he's sneaky good and probably was looking at a first-round grade or at least near the end of the first round, top of the second round, but he had a significant injury, ACL, at the end of the season in December. So, if you look at Chris Bell, do you want to take somebody that high in the draft who just tore his ACL in December? If it wasn't for that injury, he would absolutely be in the conversation as one of the top 4 or 5 receivers in this group. And as Field Yates told Mike Reese, quote, there is tremendous receiver depth in this class, unquote. Jordan Reed of ESPN has wide receiver as the 3rd deepest position group in the draft this coming April. And then you look at offensive tackles, pretty interesting. The offensive tackles are not really seen as an elite class. I don't even think you'd look at Will Campbell, Armand Membu, for example, from last year. I don't know if you put any of the tackles that are in this year's draft above those guys if they were all part of the same draft group. But there's going to be an opportunity because there's not really that elite tackle. There's going to be an opportunity for the Pats to land someone at number 31 if they want. Matt Miller wrote about Monroe Freeling, offensive tackle. He has him going in his mock draft at number 29. This was early February. Freeling's upside could be intriguing for teams looking for a starting right tackle in this class. Freeling has ideal length and movement skills at 6'7" and 315 pounds. Back to Field Yates. He has the Patriots actually drafting offensive tackle Caleb Lomu, and that's from February 11th's mock draft from Field Yates. Lomu, who took over at left tackle for Utah in 2024, could slide in at tackle or guard for New England. Lomu needs to further develop his strength, but the 6'6", 304-pounder is already a solid pass protector who did not allow a single sack in 2025. You also have guys like Maxie Henachor. You have Blake Miller from Clemson, Those are right tackle options towards the end of the first round. You can even look at linebacker as another position that is seen as pretty deep in this class, which would make sense for the Pats when you look at what they had at linebacker. And as soon as Robert Spillane went down, how that significantly impacted the football team and the defense. So when you look at these positional groups, when you look at edge and wide receiver and tackle, even linebacker, you start to feel pretty good. Tight end is another positional group that is seen as pretty deep in this draft class. These are all positions that the Patriots should be targeting in free agency and in the draft. So even though there's not a ton of top-tier talent in this draft, it sets up pretty darn well for the Patriots.
That's all for today's Big 3 in 30 NFL. If you follow basketball or college sports, the Big 3 in 30 has shows for the biggest news in the NBA and on campus going up every week just like this one. Just search the Big 3 in 30 NBA or the Big 3 in 30 college wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Big 3 in 30 NFL.